Hi everyone, my name is Rochelle Archulus and I am the very proud principal of Woodlawn Middle School in Baltimore County, Maryland. One of the things that I want to share with you today is my journey in becoming a principal and some structures that we had to put in place in order to transform our school's culture and climate. First, let me tell you a little bit about Woodlawn Middle School. We have approximately 630 students and growing. We service grades 6 through 8. We're predominantly African American, followed by a growing Hispanic population. We are considered a Title I school because a little over 70% of our students qualify for free or reduced meals. We also, in our area of our school, have a pretty large foster care community, as well as we have several group homes. So students, when they're placed there, of course, comes to our school when they have those either foster care or group home placements. So sometimes they're only with us for a little while. When I arrived at Woodlawn Middle School 6 years ago, the climate was less than desirable. No bueno. Kids were in the hallway. It just was not an environment that was conducive to learning. And so it was very important for me as the new leader of the school to put some structures in place. Now, I told you a little bit about the school, so because of that, we already had some, of course, related service providers that were assigned to our school. So we had 2 school counselors, we have a full-time social worker, we have a part-time school psychologist, we have a pupil personnel that works with our school and one of our feeder elementary schools as well. We have a full-time nurse, so we have all of those things. But one of the things that I noticed very quickly is that everybody was just doing their own thing in order to meet the needs of students. And so some of the things that I'm telling you, of course, did not happen year one, but I think you should be able to grab some things from some nuggets from this and hopefully some takeaways, and you'll be able to apply some of these things in your own school right away. And so again, everybody was just sort of doing their own things. And so I'm looking at the students that are coming through the door with various needs and yes, behaviors. And then I realized that many of our students are coming through the door with things in their invisible book bags that we can't see. Trauma, maybe a parent incarcerated, maybe they've been retained before, maybe they're in foster care, maybe they're in a group home and they've just been in there. All these things, I'm pointing to the invisible book bag that they carry through the door. And sometimes we as educators just see the child and maybe that behavior and don't really see what's happening with them. And so in order to teach children, we have to be able to reach them. If we really want to meet the needs of the students, what are we going to do? And so that was my task. Very quickly, I knew in order to transform this culture and climate, I had to create an environment that students knew that we cared for them, and I had to be able to put in some supports for them. So one of the things that I noticed again is that everybody was working in isolation. Everybody was working. So the school social worker was, and the school psychologist was on a total different side of the building. So we needed them for like a threat assessment or something like that. We had to walkie-talkie for them and then wait. The child would have to wait until they came to wherever the child was. And usually the child would come to the school counseling office. And so one of the things that I did very quickly was I had some additional office space in that area, and so I moved some people out and moved them in. So that way what we created was like a student support center, so to speak, one hub where students could come and also where they could collaborate very quickly and assess the situation, whatever the needs were of the child, and see who could take care of that child at that moment. And so that was one of the first things we do. So if you have office space where you're able to maybe make some adjustments and move some people around, I think it would be beneficial to really have all of those different service providers in one area. So that was the first thing we did. So now our school counselors, social worker, we also had an outside partnership. They were all in that same area. Okay. The next thing, what was birthed out of that was, here it is right here, everybody, was then we created a trauma team. Yay! You may say, what's a trauma team? Okay, so a trauma team is comprised of those very people that I just named. So the school counselors, the school social worker, the school psychologist, the school nurse, the pupil personnel worker, and even administrators when we can get there. And so this team meets weekly on a weekly basis. Every Monday at 10 o'clock, this team meets in order to discuss students that are at risk for various things, or that we notice are carrying things in those invisible book bags that we need to address and provide supports for. So it may be a student has come up on a hardship, or maybe very recently they had a parent that died suddenly, or maybe something with custody because a parent was incarcerated recently, or maybe they have been threatening self-harm upon themselves and been going into crisis. So they meet as a collective team in order to discuss those students and decide what supports do they need and how are we going to address it very quickly for that student and even for that family at times. And so to have that meeting space once a week has been greatly beneficial, because instead of people meeting in isolation, we've been able to meet together as a team. And that means everybody's on the same page with what's happening with our students. So we have a Google Doc that's a live document that we're able to add students to this list, and we're even able to document the supports that we are doing for that child and or family. So that way, all of those people that we name, plus administrators, have access to this. So we can say, okay, on March 13th, we put this in place for this child. However, they had something that happened when the schools closed, and we have not been able to get in touch with this child, or the PPW was able to make a home visit and get in touch with this family. Whatever the latest update is, we all have access to this. So this has been tremendously beneficial, not only before the pandemic, but it's been beneficial since the pandemic, because we also already had this in place. So our meetings continue. It's just virtual now. And so now we still meet as a team, and it's especially important because we don't see our students every day. We're all home. And so it's important that we're able to connect with that child and that family to make sure that they're able to access instruction or anything else that they may need, that we're able to get out to them during this pandemic time. And so if you don't have something like this at your school, I think it's very easy to start. If you're not the principal, go to your principal and say, hey, is it okay if we meet as a team? I'm sure that they will be absolutely okay with you all collaborating and meeting at a team. Maybe you can't meet once a week. Maybe you will meet bi-weekly. Start there and just start collaborating, and you will see that instead of working in isolation, you're able to meet the needs of those students very well. I hope this was helpful to you, and if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. Start that trauma team today. Thank you.